Hello students, in today's class we'll see a problem on signal flow graph. Okay, so this is the signal flow graph that is given to you and you need to find out the transfer function for this signal flow graph. Okay, so how to find out the transfer function? We have the Mason's gain formula, right? So what does the Mason's gain formula say? The transfer function T of S is equal to, see this, let this be R of S and this be C of S. Okay, so this is the problem, right? It is nothing but Laplace transform of output by Laplace transform of input, right? So which is equal to summation I is equal to 1 to capital N Pi delta I the whole divided by delta, right? What is this? N is the total number of forward paths and Pi is the ith forward path gain, and this delta consists of loops, non-touching loops, etc. Okay, first let us see how many forward paths are there. See, before that let us number these nodes. Okay, let this be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 6, 7 and 8. Okay, so there are 8 nodes. Okay, these are the nodes, right? Okay, now which is the starting node? Input node. This one is the input node, right? And what is the output node? Output node is this node 5. Okay, how to go from 1 to 5? How many paths are there? If you look at this, see, you can go from 1 to 5 via this 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 and then 4 to 5, right? We cannot traverse these paths because they are loops, right? So forward path is nothing but moving from the input node to the output node without repeating any other paths in between, right? Without repeating any nodes, we can say. So 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 and 4 to 5. This is one path. And what is the other path? See, for going from 1 to 5 we have yet another path, 1 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8 and then to 5, right? So 1 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8 and to 5. Is there any other path for going from 1 to 5? No. So capital N is equal to 2. Okay. So we have P1 delta 1, right? So this is nothing but summation I is equal to 1 to 2 Pi delta I divided by delta, which is nothing but P1 delta 1 plus P2 delta 2 divided by delta. Right? So what is this P1? P1 is the forward path gain. It is 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5. What are the gains in the forward path? G1, G2, G3, G4. So P1 is nothing but product of G1, G2, G3, G4. Right? What is the other forward path? 1 to 6, 6 to 7, 7 to 8 and 8 to 5. So that is the second forward path. What are the gains in that path? G5, G6, G7, G8. Okay. So G1, G5, G6, G7, G8. This is another path, right? G5, G6, G7, G8. So this is another path. So we have found out P1 and P2. Now we need to find out delta. So before going to delta 1 and delta 2, we need to find out delta. So what is delta? So delta is equal to 1 minus sum of individual loop gains. Okay, individual loop gains plus sum of gain product of any two non-touching loops minus so on, right? So now we need to find out how many loops are there. Okay, how many loops are there? Now what is a loop? We know that starting from one node and coming back to the same node without repeating any other nodes is a loop, right? In that case, see, starting from 2, we go to 3 and then back to 2. So this is one loop. What is the other loop? 3 to 4 and back to 3, right? 6 to 7, back to 6, 7 to 8 and back to 7, right? So we have 4 loops, okay? So let us write those loops. L1 is equal to 2 to 3 and 3 to 2, that is first loop. L2 is equal to 3 to 4 and 4 to 3. What is the other loop? L3 is equal to 6 to 7 and back to 6. What is L4? L4 is equal to 7 to 8 and then back to 7, right? So these are the 4 loops. What are the loop gains? So L1 is nothing but minus G2 H2, right? Minus G2 H2. And what about this? Minus G3 H3, then minus G6 H6, and what about the last one? Minus G7 H7. Okay, so these 4 are the loops. Now we have to see how many 2 non-touchings are there. Okay, so sum of individual loop gains. We have the individual loop gains. Next we need to see the sum of gain product of any 2 non-touching loops. So now we have to find out are there any 2 non-touching loops. What is meant by non-touching loops? Loops which are not touching each other. Okay, loops which don't have a common node. That is 2, 3, back to 2, 3, 4 and back to 3. These 2 loops are touching each other because they have 3 as a common node, right? You can see here also. 3 is common for L1 and L2. But whereas, see L1 and L3, there is no node in common. 2, 3, 2, 6, 7, 6. Right? So these 2 loops doesn't have any node in common and they are not touching. Okay? See, if you want, I have to draw and show it to you. Right? So this loop has no contact with this loop. Right? Whereas these 2 loops will be in contact. Right? Similarly, if you can see, L1 is not touching L4 also, right? So, what are the non-touching loops? Now we can give those non-touching loops. L1, L3 non-touching. Similarly, L1, L4 non-touching, right? L2, L3, they are not touching each other, and similarly L2 and L4 are also not touching each other. So we have 2 non-touching loops, right? So see, delta is 1 minus sum of individual loop gains. What are the individual loop gains? For example, if you want to find out this delta is nothing but one minus sum of individual loop gains, right? What are the individual loop gains? L1 plus L2 plus L3 plus L4. Okay, these are the individual loop gains. Next, what is it? Plus sum of gain product of any 2 non-touching loops. See, sum of gain product of any 2 non-touching. Which are the non-touching loops? We have written here. L1, L3. So that is a product of 2 non-touching loops, right? Sum of gain product means adding all these 4. So L1, L3 plus L1, L4 plus L2, L3 plus L2, L4. Okay. Next, what happens? minus sum of gain product of any 3 non-touching loops. Are there any 3 non-touching loops? It is not possible. Okay, only 2 non-touchings are there. So you can check it out also. So this is your delta. Okay, now last thing is we need to find out this delta 1 and delta 2, right? So to find out this delta 1 and delta 2, we need to look into the loops which are not in that particular forward path. See, for example, to find out this delta 1, you need to see the loops which are not in that path. Which is the path? It is P1, right? P1 is nothing but 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4 and then 4 to 5. So, which are the loops that are not in the path? There are totally 4 loops are there. These 2 loops are already in the path because the nodes are touching, right? 2, 3, 4 are involved in the loop. Similarly, they are involved in the forward path also. So, these 2 loops are involved in the forward path, whereas these 2 loops are not involved in the forward path, right? So, these 2 are the loops. What are the loops? L3 and L4, right? So, with those 2 loops, we have to write the delta formula, right? So, to find out this delta 1 and delta 2, we have to look into the loops that are not involved in that particular path, and we have to write the delta formula again. So, what is the delta formula? 1 minus sum of individual loop gains, okay? So, the same thing applies here, but 1 minus sum of individual loop gains not involved in that particular forward path, plus sum of gain product of any 2 non-touching loops not involved in that particular forward path, right? So, in that case, our delta 1 is nothing but 1 minus, what are the loops which are not involved in the path? L3, L4, right? L3 plus L4, right? Now, what about this delta 2? Delta 2 is this particular forward path. What are the loops which are not involved in this forward path? These 2 are the loops. So, delta 2 is nothing but 1 minus L1 plus L2. Because, see, only 2 loops are not involved in the path, but they 2 are touching each other. They both are touching each other. So, there are no 2 non-touching loops for this delta 1 and delta 2, right? So, before writing the final answer, we will write what is delta, delta 1, delta 2, etc. So, what is delta? Delta is nothing but 1 minus L1 plus L2 plus L3 plus L4, all have negative signs. So, it is 1 plus G2H2 plus G3H3 plus G6H6 plus G7H7, right? Plus L1, L3, L1, L4, L2, L3, L plus L2, L4, right? So, L1, L3 is G2H2, G6H6. So, G2, G6, H2, H6 plus L1 into L4, right? G2, G7, H2, H7 plus L2, L3, G3, G6, H3, H6 plus L2, L4, G3, G7, H3, H7, right? So, this is our delta. What is delta 1? Delta 1 is nothing but 1 plus G6H6 plus G7H7. And what about delta 2? Delta 2 is equal to 1 plus G2H2 plus G3H3. Okay. So, now we can write the final expression. So, what is the transfer function? C of S by R of S is equal to P1 delta 1. What is P1? G1, G2, G3, G4 into what is delta 1? 1 plus G6 H6 plus G7 H7, right? So, P1 delta 1 plus what is that? P2 delta 2. What is P2? G5, G6, G7, G8. So, G5, G6, G7, G8 into 1 plus G2H2 plus G3H3. Okay. So the whole divided by delta. What is delta? 1 plus G2H2 plus G3H3 plus G6H6 plus G7H7 plus G2G6H2H6 plus G2G7H2H7 plus G3G6H3H6 plus G3G7H3H7. Okay, so this is our final answer for the transfer function, right?